Hey besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you all the books that I DNF'd in 2023. Honestly, some of these could be considered the worst books that I read this year, but I try not to rate books that I haven't read more than 80% of, and all of these are books that I stopped at 50% or less. So let's go ahead and get into this list so you can know what books I thought were so bad that I could not continue. The first of these is a graphic novel called Flamer by Mike Curato. I personally could not get into it. I didn't like the art style, and then on top of that, the story made me a little bit uncomfortable. There was a lot of fat phobia in it, which I get is something that teens struggle with. This is about a boy who's in between middle school and high school, and he is going to like a Boy Scout type camp, and he is grappling with the fact that he is gay and he doesn't have a very good home life. He loves being at camp because it gives him a lot of purpose, and he's actually in love with his bunkmate. I don't really know where the story goes with that because I did DNF. I read, I don't know how many pages I read. I think this graphic novel is like around 400 pages, and it should have read really quickly, but I really struggled. And I think that it's a bad sign if you can't even finish a graphic novel. But the scene that made me call it quits is when the other boys call our main character into a tent and they are all masturbating into bottles. Like they are all mutually masturbating at the same time, and that really disturbed me, and I was like, I don't want to read this anymore. But I'm very happy for anyone that enjoyed it. It does seem like it's a coming of age story. I just don't think it's for me. The next book is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. This was my first Stephen King that I ever tried reading, and it was boring as fuck. It's about this girl who gets lost in the woods, and she just really loves baseball. That's why it's called The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, because she loves Tom Gordon. Apparently he was a baseball player. It's a survivalist story. Like, she's in the woods trying to find things out, and I think I read like at least 30 or 40% of this, and I was like, where is this story going? And it was not the best for Stephen King. I don't recommend this being your first. Now, I did go on to read Pet Sematary, and I didn't like that either. So perhaps Stephen King is just not for me. I think my final attempt is going to be trying Misery, and if I don't like Misery, then I'm gonna put myself out of my misery and I'm not going to try Stephen King anymore. Up next, we do have the book that probably made you click on this video. I'm sure you saw it and you were like, I have to find out, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This was so bad. Honestly, if I had read more of it, I would absolutely have put it on my worst list. I cannot begin to describe how upsetting this was for me, because I was a Fourth Wing stan. I was one of the girlies in the trenches defending Fourth Wing for all the haters. Obviously, Fourth Wing was very overhyped. You probably didn't even need me defending it, but there were plenty of people that I love and respect that were like, oh my god, this is the worst book ever. And I was like, it's for girlies who want to have fun. It's about dragons, and it's like a CW show, and you just don't understand. You don't get it. But lo and behold, I picked up Iron Flame, and it was a flaming garbage can of a book. It was horrible. I literally ordered the holiday edition of Fourth Wing, and then I had also ordered Iron Flame so they would have the matching black edges, and I sold both of them on Pango Books. I got rid of them because I hated Iron Flame that much. This book is so long and needed so much editing. For what? For why? Rebecca, look me in the eyes right now. Did you write this with ChatGPT? Because it kind of felt like you did. I cannot believe she released Fourth Wing, which by the way had its issues. I'm here to admit that the world building was a little bit shaky, and it was more of a romantasy than it was fantasy. The only thing that I really liked about it was the romance and the dragons, and I was here for a good time. Like, I have seen every episode of the Vampire Diaries. I'm okay with media not making sense as long as I'm having a good time. Rebecca, you lost your privileges for me not criticizing Fourth Wing anymore, because now I can openly say I don't even like Fourth Wing anymore because the second book ruined it so much for me. Fourth Wing ends on this huge cliffhanger that was so exciting, and I had all these beliefs and expectations about where I thought the book was going to go, and then the way that Iron Flame opens is they're back at school and she's going to class again, and it felt like a repeat of the first book, and it took 300 pages to even get to anything interesting. How are you going to put me through an entire book before you give me the better book? I didn't even read the second half. I DNF'd at part 2 because I was like, I simply can't read this anymore. Xaden and Violet's relationship becomes so toxic. The first 300 pages is literally just them having the same argument over and over and over again. I do think that Violet is annoying, but I was Team Violet in this book because Xaden was gaslighting the fuck out of her. He was being so annoying. All she wanted was for him to tell her the truth, and he was like, you can't handle the truth. You're not asking the right questions. He kept saying, you're not asking the right questions, and he would like blame her. Like, there's this one point where his ex-girlfriend shows up, and at no point does he sit Violet down and go, hey, I'm sorry if it's gonna be uncomfortable for you, but we have to spend time with my ex-girlfriend. We dated for a while, blah, blah. No, he just lets her figure it out on her own. Like, other people starts talking about it and she's like, oh, you dated her? And Zayden's like, whatever, you weren't asking the right questions. It was giving weaponized incompetence. Like, you know, when a woman's like, hey, why didn't you do the dishes to her husband? And then he's like, well, you didn't ask. That is what it felt like. I will not be defending Fourth Wing anymore. I will not be speaking on Fourth Wing anymore. This is very difficult for me and my team at this time. I will not be taking any further questions. Iron Flame was dog shit. It was. Next up, on a much lighter note, we have The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a book I DNF'd simply just because I wasn't enjoying it. And I'm at a point in my life where I don't really enjoy YA anymore. And so I just wasn't liking this and I didn't want to finish it and give it a low rating. This is an updated take on the story of Carrie by Stephen King. We have our main character and she is mixed race, and her whole life has been told that she has to hide it because she's very light skinned and her father is white and her mother passed away. And so he straightens her hair and makes her look white. And one day it rains at school and it makes her hair get very curly, and so people figure out what her race is. And this is in one of those towns where it's very segregated, like they have two separate proms, and so the whole prom thing is that their proms get combined and it's a Carrie situation. I will say, if you have seen Carrie or read Carrie, I feel like you already know the story for this. I kind of get why Tiffany D. Jackson would write this for modern day teenagers, because a lot of them probably are not familiar with Carrie, so it probably would be a little bit more unique to them. I just really wasn't getting anything out of this, and I was honestly kind of bored, and it is very YA, like takes place in a high school, and it honestly wasn't for me. So I just thought, let's not read this, because so many people love this book and I love that for you guys, but I just was like, no thanks. Next we have I Keep My Exoskeletons to Myself by Marisa Crane. This is I don't even know how to describe it. It's like magical realism, sci-fi, light sci-fi. It's about this woman whose wife dies during childbirth and they have this baby. And in this world, when you do something that is considered a crime, you get your, I think you get your shadow removed, or you get an extra shadow or something. And so the baby ends up getting an extra shadow because of the mom dying during childbirth. And our main character also has a shadow, and it's all about her having to raise this baby by herself after her wife died. It definitely has like a sapphic romance element to it, because we are getting past memories of the couple when they were together before they had the baby, and then we're also in present day and her dealing with this weird shadow government thing. I'm very sorry to say that I just thought this was very boring. I got recommended this in my comments by someone because I really loved Our Wives Under the Sea. I just don't think I had space in myself for another story like this. Maybe if I had waited a longer amount of time between each one, I could have appreciated this, but I just decided to DNF because I was like, this book just isn't for me. Like, it's not doing it for me. I was very shocked to see that this was on the Goodreads Choice Awards because it doesn't have very many reviews, but I guess good for you, Marisa Crane. The next book we have is another young adult. I DNF'd this because it just really wasn't for me, and that is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I have officially accepted that YA is no longer for me. I am going to actively avoid reading it because it doesn't do anything for me. When I started this, I read like 1 or 2 chapters and I immediately DNF'd because I was like, I just know for a fact that I'm not going to enjoy this. This is a horror book about these girls who like live on an island and they're not allowed to leave the island, and there's some sort of disease. I know there's like body horror in it. I honestly didn't get very far into it, so I can't really tell you in depth what it's about, but I just read those like first 2 chapters and I was like, no. All right, the next book is probably the other one that you clicked on this video for, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Why are all the Rebeccas failing so hard? I don't know. This also is young adult. I gave it a shot though because everyone and their mom was talking about how good it was, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a go because I like historical fantasy and it's gonna be good. And it's Divine Rivals because rivals to lovers, like enemies to lovers, like love that. What this book actually is World War I fan fiction. Our 2 main characters in this book are reporters that work in a newspaper and they are vying for the same position. And so the female character comes from a family that's kind of down on her luck. Her brother left to go to this war. So the war, very confusing because I feel like Rebecca Ross is horrible at world building, but the war is basically like these 2 gods are fighting and they have armies that like of humans that have like followed them and worship them. And so her brother went off to follow, I believe, the goddess. So she's been writing letters to his brother ever since he left home. Can't remember exactly how, but they keep ending up going to the guy that's her rival, like through this like magical force or something. And so they start writing to each other, but they don't know that they're writing to each other at the beginning. And it is very much insta love. It's giving young adult insta love. Also, like I mentioned, the world building in this is so messy. I listened to about an hour of the audiobook before before I decided to DNF, and I listened to my audiobooks very fast, so that's like 2.5 hours into the book, so I don't know exactly what page that is, but I was just like, I simply don't have time to read this because I have so many books that I have to read for videos. So if I'm not enjoying something and I'm just reading it for fun, I simply cannot go further with it, and this is bad. It's bad. I don't really understand why everyone is so obsessed with it. Like, I would get it if everyone was like, ooh, I really like it, it's nice, but like, this was on the same level as Fourth Wing, and I get the hype around Fourth Wing. I was a part of it before Iron Flame happened to me, but this one I was just like. And then the final book that I DNF'd was The Collective by Allison Galen. This is a thriller that was recommended to me by a few people after my 5-star audit when I was talking about what kind of books that I like, and I totally get why people thought that I would enjoy this. This is a good for her story about a woman whose daughter is murdered, and she knows for a fact who did it, but no one believes her. The kid got off from doing this, and so she wants to seek her own revenge. So she goes to a like dark web message forum, and it's like a group of women called The Collective, and they all work to like seek revenge on people. I didn't get very far into this, so I can't really tell you exactly what happens. The issue with this book is that it took her a very long time to get on the forum and start talking about getting revenge on this kid. Like, I read like 25% of this before I DNF'd, and I just feel like it was really dragged out for what the plot was supposed to be. I was expecting like action, like we're gonna be killing people, we're gonna be getting revenge, it's gonna be a good time, and that's just not what this book was. So it was very boring. This was another book that I was reading just for fun, and like I mentioned with Divine Rivals, I do not have time to read books that are bad, so I just DNF'd this and I called it quits. And that's it. But that brings me to the end of this list of books that I DNF'd in 2023. I generally don't DNF that often. I probably should more, but I feel like when I'm reading something for a vlog, I feel very driven to finish it, and so it's very rare that I'm like, I simply cannot go another moment forward with this. If you've made it to the end of this video, feel free to use the broken heart emoji, because that's how Iron Flame made me feel. Rebecca Euros, I trusted you and you fucked me over, and I will never read another book by you. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, also if you DNF'd anything in 2023, and I thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.